Good morning, Mark. Great to be with you.
Great to be with you. So on Twitter, and I'm guessing some other places, you weighed in yesterday and said, here's my personal thought about a great pick. Want to share?
Sure. I think the single best pick that President Trump could make to replace Justice Kennedy would be Senator Mike Lee. Mike would make an extraordinary justice. And as you know, Mark, we've seen over and over again Republican presidents get this wrong. We get this wrong when we roll the dice, when we take a chance and we don't know what we're going to get. And about half of the Republican nominees to the court have turned out to be disasters. Democrats never get it wrong. Republicans get it wrong all the time. We can't afford to do that this time. And with Mike Lee, we know to an absolute certainty that he would always, always, always be faithful to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's what we need in the next justice.
In talking to this audience about the Supreme Court, when we have riffed on occasion about Supreme Court vacancies, the first U.S. Senator that comes to mind is you. We've had that conversation a couple of times. As a practical matter, that's just really not doable, and that'd be a little unseemly to pull out of the race, correct?
Well, look, I certainly appreciate it. It is humbling to be discussed in that context. I'll tell you, just personally speaking, that is, I don't want to serve on the court, and I've told the president that. I respect the court. I revere the court. Much of my adult life has been practicing before the court. But let me tell you why personally I don't want to serve on the court, which is that a principled federal judge stays out of political and policy fights. If I were ever a judge, that's what I'd do.
Yep.
I don't want to stay out of political
and I don't want you to. No one wants you to. This goes directly to what we discussed on a stage at one of our events.
Yep.
I said, listen, Ted is here. We don't rehearse. We're just talking on the fly here. And I told you, and I told that crowd, and I told this audience, there may be 5 or 10 or 15 magnificent souls, and Mike Lee is certainly one of them, who can be the next Neil Gorsuch in the attempt to be the next. But there's not 5 or 6 or 7 or even 1 or 2 people who can be, and pardon me, the next Ted Cruz. You cannot leave. There is no replacing you. And I just the notion of Trump in the White House, another Neil Gorsuch on the court, Ted Cruz in the Senate for 6 more years. It's Christmas every day.
Well, and the Senate is the battleground. I mean, every contested policy we've got. As you know, the Senate right now is 51-49. It's a bare Republican majority. And whether it's cutting taxes, reducing regulations, creating jobs, defending the Constitution, securing the border, rebuilding the military, every day I jump out of bed incredibly proud and privileged to represent 28 million Texans, to fight for Texans every day. And that's what I want to keep doing, is fighting for Texans every day in the Senate.
Well, you'll be fighting for the Constitution in helping to forward the Trump nominee.
Yes.
And so let's do a little history lesson. I've started it, and I'll let you partner up with me here. Mitch McConnell, in one of my favorite things he's ever done, said in the spring of 2016, we're not going to have hearings because the presidential election is coming right up. There are those who have said, hey, this is an election year, same thing. We should hold up this nomination as well.
Well, and it's not the same thing. I mean, the analogy is false. Number one, when the Senate did not fill Justice Scalia's vacancy in 2016 in the middle of the primaries. In fact, I remember the day Justice Scalia passed away was the day of the South Carolina debate. I remember it well because we debated that evening.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in the heat of a presidential race at the time. And it had been 80 years since the Senate had confirmed a vacancy on the Supreme Court that occurred during a presidential election year. There's a long history of not doing so, including, among other people, Joe Biden, who told President George W. Bush the same thing, that during a presidential election year, the Senate would not confirm any vacancies that occurred that year. That's a very different thing from a congressional mid-year election. Look, we have congressional elections every 2 years. And fundamentally, this was an issue. And by the way, the Senate confirmed Elena Kagan, President Obama's nominee, in 2010, a mid-year election. I mean, there's a long history. Just like we don't do it in presidential election years, we do it all the time in mid-year elections. But beyond that, 2016, this was an issue that was front and center. It was before the American people. I very much believe that if Justice Scalia had not passed away when he did, that there is a very real possibility Hillary Clinton would be president. A big part of the reason the American people elected President Trump and elected a Republican majority in the Senate is that we want principled constitutionalists on the court. We want judges who will protect our rights, protect the Bill of Rights. We don't want what Hillary Clinton promised the American people, which is liberal judicial activists who will impose a left-wing political agenda. And so the American people decided this, and we need to follow through, and we're going to. We're going to follow through. I hope the president will make an appointment of a strong, principled constitutionalist, and if and when that happens, I fully expect the Senate to have confirmation hearings this fall, likely September or October, and confirm them before the election.
And there will be so much teeth gnashing and hand wringing. It will make the last 6 months look like the office picnic. So let's talk about how that's going to go. First, the Republican side. I'm hearing, and listen, not every Republican is Ted Cruz. They grow a different crop up in New England, and a couple of pro-choicers in Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski up in Alaska. And I've already heard a little bit of buzz, and I don't know if this is saber-rattling, that they might find a problem with a nominee likely to overturn Roe v. Wade, which, despite their republicanism, they view as a sacrament.
Well, I will say for the last year and a half, we've done a good job of keeping the Republican conference together in the Senate, keeping united. We've confirmed every judicial nominee that has come up here, and the conference has stayed together. We've kept the conference together. I hope and believe we'll do the same here, but that's going to be, anytime you have a 51-49 majority, it is a challenge, and so we'll continue to work at it, but hopefully we can get it done.
And I know it's 51 numerically. Senator McCain, may God bless him and give him every bit of health that the Lord sees fit to give. He will not be a part of this vote, it appears. So it's 50, and the best we can hope for is unanimity, and then Pence with the tiebreaker. If we lose a Murkowski or a Collins or Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia, who's kind of vague on the whole thing, wouldn't it be the craziest of ironies if the nomination is saved by Democrats like, let's go, Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, West Virginia, North Dakota, and Indiana, respectively, who are fighting for their lives in heavy Trump states and who already voted for Gorsuch?
It would be, but I got to tell you, I would not hold my breath on that. I think if Republicans can't stay together, I do not believe the Democrats would give us the votes, even a single vote, necessary to confirm a Supreme Court justice. This goes to the heart of what they care about. We may get one or two Democratic votes if it's clear we've got the votes to confirm.
I got you. Where they would not be consequential votes or difference makers.
But I don't believe a single Democrat would give us the necessary 50th vote. I don't see that happening.
On the Mike Lee thing, can you lobby a little bit? And pardon me for not knowing, is Mike Lee on the list of 25?
He is on the list of 25, and I can claim some real responsibility for that. As you'll recall well, in 2016, I took some time to endorse Donald Trump after he got the nomination.
Yes,
and the condition that I had for offering my endorsement and campaigning in support of him was that he commit to following that list and that he add Mike Lee to the list. And so he did so. The day he did so, within an hour, I publicly endorsed and supported him. And so I'm glad he's on the list. You know who also was added to that list that day because of the condition that I negotiated was Neil Gorsuch.
Oh, no, I was going to say Don Willett because a Texan, who would be a pretty good choice as well. But
Don Willett would be terrific, but Gorsuch was added to that list as part of the negotiation over my support, and so was Mike Lee. And it's I believe this nomination could prove the single most consequential thing President Trump does in his entire time in the White House.
That is undeniably true, because as he himself said, other than declarations of war and committing people to various far-flung parts of the world where they might die, et cetera, war is, a huge thing. Commander-in-Chief is a huge thing. But this is the kind of stuff that could shape American life and law for 40 years. So,
and I will say it will be fairly amusing to watch Chuck Schumer running around in circles with his hair on fire.
Yes, it will, and we will be there to chronicle it. Senator, thank you so much. As always, I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Take care. God bless.